County Auditor Roger Corlet's here, as I'm trying to make things neat, but that's a losing effort. How you did today?
Thank you for inviting me.
So, you're in your third term, is that right?
Yes. This is the first year of my third term.
Okay. So you're not, we've got a list of people that are already running for re-election, but that's not something you have to worry about for a while.
Right.
And when you do run, you get sworn in like in March instead of January.
It's like the first Monday of March.
Okay. So give us a little background as far as you.
Well, I was in public accounting here in the local area with S.R. Snodgrass for 32 years, and I did a lot of everything. Auditing, tax, consulting, and I think my government experience is what spoke the most, because during that time I had been in charge of the audit of the city of Conneaut, the city of Ashtabula, and the city of Geneva. So I learned government accounting.
Yeah, I guess.
And I thought that would match up well. That's only the financial side of it. There's so many other things that the office involves.
But there is a big difference between public and private as far as pretty much everything is. I mean,
many times I've described government accounting and nonprofit accounting as the most complicated accounting, and yet these are the entities that can't afford it.
That can't afford.
Yeah, I mean the amount of money that you need to do proper accounting is more because of all the nuances of the systems and the structure of the accounting. It's much easier to do normal for-private accounting than it is government.
I bet. Does it? That seems like I can remember like people from the state auditor's office coming into municipalities and like taking over a room in city government and spending several weeks or months there going over the books and all.
Right. Well, during my period at Snodgrass, there was a period of time where the state auditor put out these municipal audits for bid. So we went up against other accounting firms and bid on it to do the job, and so we were able to do it for many years. The most they would let us do work on one job was 10 years.
Oh.
And we maxed out in Conneaut and Ashtabula.
So does that pique your interest in government, public service, or?
I think my public service, it goes way back. When I was in the Air Force, I was in the Air Force for 4 years. And then when I got out, I looked for a career and accounting was really my interest. And I went to public accounting because I felt I could work with more people. And what I like about being a public servant now is the fact that I don't have to keep billable hours and send them a bill for what I tell them.
And your boss is the public.
Yes. And I look at it as though your election is your hiring. They either hire or they fire you.
Right.
For what you've shown.
So tell me how things have changed in the 9 years since you were first. So who did you replace? You replaced
Sandra O'Brien was the auditor,
okay.
But she had decided not to run.
Right.
And I believe at that time she was going to run for a statewide office.
State treasurer.
Yes, I don't remember which one, but
I think it was state treasurer.
And so there was 3 of us that ran on the 2006 ballot, and I was the lucky one.
Or?
Well, I tell people that this job has been the most fun of anything I've done.
Really?
Yes. My wife can't understand it, but I enjoy going to work. I really do. And, there's days, we all have those days.
Oh, sure.
Where you get a lot of problems that all of a sudden they're all over you. But, I like solving problems. and dealing with the emergencies that come up.
Well, tell us. I had Don Craig in a while ago. Well, a few times, but one time I was talking to her about they had the crisis where they took all the money away from county governments. That's when she was first elected, and it's when all the offices were closed, like one day a week and all that. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I came in March of 2007. 2007 wasn't too bad. But
Right.
by 2008, we knew things were going south, and then by 2009 is where we really hit the ropes as far as trying to curtail our spending, because the money was not coming in, not going to be there, and we were losing money. On top of the recession, we were losing money because the state was redirecting it,
Right.
taking it away from local government.
Redirecting is nice, saying that they just weren't giving it to you anymore.
Yeah, and so all our budgets were cut, and our staff were, they were on furlough, or they were cut back in hours to try and meet the budget, and that was really, and nobody. I had no idea when I ran for office that I was going to be dealing with the worst recession that
Right.
anybody could remember. Almost as bad as a depression,
Yeah.
but don't think quite.
Right. So, how did things get better?
I think the one thing about a recession or a tightening of the belt, so to speak, is that you learn to find efficiencies somewhere else. You try to create efficiencies. So the one thing it teaches us is that we need to look to save money in various ways. And I think in the next 2 years we did that, and gradually we came out of it. And I think, and it's due to all the offices working together to try and meet the demands, but yet find different ways to do things more efficiently.
So those efficiencies are still in place?
Yes, and we're always looking for new ways to do things. Technology really helps a lot too. It's expensive to begin with,
Right.
but it really helps. You got to be updating all the time. That's one thing I learned in public accounting is people have to adapt. They need to adopt the policy that change is normal. And we're going to change. We change rapidly.
And that's not just accounting.
Right. It's everything, and you need to move with the times in order to not fall behind.
Right. So tell us, what exactly does the auditor? What's your responsibilities?
Well, it was the first thing that I heard when I came into office was. There were a lot of things put under the auditor. If they didn't know where to put it, the legislature, they put it under the auditor. So there's a lot of things. There's pages of, there was several pages of duties, auditor duties. It was like 3 or 4 pages list of things. I couldn't begin to tell you what all that is, but basically the auditor is the chief financial officer, fiscal officer. He's the chief payroll officer, and he's the chief assessor, and that has to do with the real estate side. The auditor sits on the Board of Revision, is also secretary of the Board of Revision, sits on the Budget Commission, is also secretary of the Budget Commission. I am the administrator of the Data Board, which is the IT part of the county.
Oh, okay.
And
So you have to know all about facts and figures, and you have to know all about computers as well?
I've always had a great interest in the computer side, so it helps. But I have a good. That's one thing I want to say for sure is I inherited a great staff, and I've got a great staff. And if I didn't have that, things wouldn't work as well as they do. But I'm very proud of my staff. But yeah, we do IT for the county complex there.
So you are a Democrat,
Yes.
and you replaced a Republican, but you pretty much kept the same staff?
Yes, I mean it does. You
That's
look
not
at the
a real-
staff, and you don't want to get rid of what's there because it's they're smart. They're there not as political people. They're there to do a job. And as long as they're doing their job, I told them two things when I came in. One is, first of all, you have to do your job and we'll be fine. Second of all, you have to have fun doing it. And we have fun doing our job, because otherwise it'd be boring. Very boring.
You said that the staff, they kind of roll up your sleeves, do the work kind of
Yes.
thing. So I know that in like the state and I know bigger counties is that the elected officials kind of I don't know, above it all or whatever. Do you have to roll up your sleeves and get down with the figures and stuff too, or?
Oh, absolutely.
I asked this question of Dawn Cragen, and she, as the treasurer, and she says, yeah, every day she's got a list of people she's had to call and say, when are you going to pay your property taxes?
Yes, we all, I mean, I talk to taxpayers as well as do the facts and figures, as far as the budgets. I have a real estate manager, so the biggest part of that is handled by him and his staff, and then I manage the rest of it, pretty much. But overall, I am directing everybody. But I enjoy it. I mean, I think in order to be a good manager, one thing is you have to know what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, and you have to be able to see if there's a problem and answer a problem if it's not being done correctly. I found many things that weren't, when we came in, my real estate manager and I, we told the staff that please, bear with us. We're going to be asking a lot of questions, because the first thing we want to know is, do we have to do that, and why do we do that, and can we do something differently? What can we do to make it better? And so, the staff was great. I mean, they adapted very well.
I don't want to get too far into the past or too political, but I remember that when Sandy O'Brien, there's a lot of controversy because you mentioned the boards that you're on and stuff, and she was on those boards, but she didn't go to the meetings, from what I remember at the time. So, I mean, how was your coming in there different than?
Well, I go to a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of meetings, let's just say that. And, I'm there to help. And, when the commissioners call me and, want me to come to a work session or a meeting, I go and we talk about whatever. But that's what I think my job is, meeting with people, meeting with these different boards. I participate. And in a small county, we're maybe a medium-sized county as counties go.
Right.
But I still think we're small enough that the elected officials need to be involved. When you get much larger, it's very difficult.
Right.
And it makes it very hard to manage. So you have to, in that case, you have to be a really, really good manager of managers in order to make things work.
Is it even a requirement to be like a CPA to be county auditor?
No.
What is I know
There's no
to be a prosecutor or judge you have to be an attorney.
Right. I would love to see them change the law because I think being the chief financial officer that you should have financial background.
Right.
Of some sort.
I would think.
It helps.
Pity me if I was ever elected auditor.
Right. It goes with the territory. I think the same would be true of the treasurer because there's no requirement there.
Right.
But we're both very, this county. I'm a CPA. The treasurer's got a master's degree. Our county administrator's got a master's degree. My real estate manager has a master's degree. We have very educated people now in key positions, and I think that's why we work together very well.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and I want to get into the Board of Revisions a little bit.
Okay.
Roger Corlett is here, the county auditor, in going into your third term, and I think when you were being sworn in or something, you said that you're getting comfortable in the position. You said at that time.
Right, I did. And what I meant by that was the first, I thought I was naive when I went in. Even
I bet everybody is.
Even as old as I was when I started, but I really thought that I could, have everything running smoothly and up to speed in 2 or 3 years. But I was totally wrong.
Well, there was a lot of tension before you. I mean, it was the county auditor's office was a source of controversy at the time, more so than it is now.
Yeah, and I had a number of comments by people as to, just to give you an example, people say you have a thankless job, and I say, no, I get more thanks than anybody deserves. I mean, people thanking me all the time, and I'm appreciative, and that people see that we're doing a good job, and I do believe we're doing a good job.
This is kind of a weird question, I think. But going from private into the public and getting oriented and stuff, taking away the political beliefs. Mm-hmm. Ben Carson never held an elective office in his life running for president. How long an adjustment if he were elected?
Yeah, that's a top office in the land, and I would never attempt that.
But at least you've been elected to something.
Yes, well, I never wanted to be an elected official, and I didn't think I would ever be an elected official, but I was presented a challenge, and I accepted it. And, I am doing the best job I can. But, I knew going into my job, I had experience.
Right.
That was going to count.
Yeah.
So, if you're comfortable in your own skin, I guess that's what
with your own profession.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of, and I don't know what the circumstances were, but the Public Works Department in Conneaut, they hired a new Public Works Director from the private sector 1 week into the job, and he was goodbye.
Right.
So, and he had knowledge of everything, and I don't know what the backstory is on that, but he lasted 1 week.
Yeah. Well, people make mistakes. I remember we hired an accountant that lasted half a day. And, just said, see ya. People, they don't know what they're getting themselves into, and you start telling them what all they're responsible for, or what they're going to be looking at doing, and sometimes it's not exactly what they thought when they first came. So.
Reminds me of a story. I used to work at the Star Beacon, and we were an unusual, kind of strange senses of humor and all. And there was a new guy started there. He rented an apartment in Jefferson, and so I don't know. We were probably a little crazy that day because I don't know why. Something in the water, making jokes and all. And so the next day, one of the reporters was stopping by his place and was going to take him around to the county offices and stuff, and he wasn't there, and they couldn't find him anywhere. So they called. Everybody was concerned because all of a sudden this guy just disappears, and he started calling hospitals to see if he was in a hospital someplace. And they called around Asheville County. I don't know why, but they continued. Found him in the psychiatric unit at Robinson Memorial Hospital in Ravenna. So after that, we were thinking, maybe we ought to change what we do with newcomers.
Yeah, you wonder what we missed. Yeah.
How many people do you have in your office working?
Usually about 22 or 23. Now there's 3 of them are strictly IT. They manage the network.
And that's for the whole
complex.
County. Yeah.
Well, not the county, but mainly. They will support DD at times, but usually DD has an outside contract too, and they will go to the nursing home on occasion.
Right.
But mainly.
But if there's a problem with computers in the sheriff's office, does he handle that?
Yes, we handle that, and all the departments there on the main campus, which is quite a few. So we have 3 people, and the court has 2 people. So I mean, the court network is within our county network, but it's managed by court IT people. Then I have one person who's GIS, which is Geographic Informational Service, which is our mapping. But we have appraisers, we have real estate, we have deed and transfer, we have bookkeeping, we have my office manager.
You still have somebody going around with a container and checking gasoline?
Yes. Oh, weights and measures. I can't forget weights and measures.
Because I think there was a time, and they said don't tell anybody, and maybe before your time, that because of economic circumstances they couldn't have anybody going around checking.
Well, we were cut back.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do as much checking as we would normally do because we didn't have the money for that.
So does weights and measures mean they check to see if a gallon of gas at a service station is a gallon of gas?
Yeah, what it measures out.
Does that include like measures? Does that include like a pound of hamburger at the?
We don't do the weight. We don't do that where we actually go into weigh packages. We do the scales in all the stores. That's why you'll see my sticker on it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But we don't have but one person, so we can't do the But the state will help in that regard. The large truck scales, they'll send a big truck up here for a week, and my guy and them will go out and test all the large scale, big, for weighing trucks, loaded trucks at Kinder Morgan Dock, at CIMAC, or there's unbelievable number of large scales. Truck stops all have them.
Right.
So yeah, he's a pretty busy guy.
How about the weigh station there at the state line?
Well, we will go in and observe when the state comes in to test it because it's within our territory. And they just redid that thing a couple of years ago. But I don't think it's being used to its fullest capacity.
Yeah,
anyways.
And whenever I go by,
it's always closed.
It is, yeah. I don't understand that. So if I go get a gallon of gas, which I'll probably be doing today because my mower's sitting out in the field because I ran out of gas, I should be getting a gallon of gas for.
We want you to get a gallon for what it says on the pump. Okay. And we've had, actually, it helps the retail and establishment as much as it does the consumer, because sometimes they're giving away gas, they don't know it. And we've had it both ways.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And quite large differences sometimes. Just all of a sudden it's out of whack.
How often does that happen?
You might get 2 or 3 instances a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad. No.
We do, and we get the complaints. Somebody thinks that they're being overcharged at this one gas station because every time they start, there's already 3 cents on the machine. So we go in and test it, and it tests fine or it doesn't. But we do have the right to shut them down if they don't comply, and so they know that.
So do they all duck it when they see your guy? Oh no!
It's good consumer protection. They never know when he's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sign at the road needs to read the same as on the pump, or they get shut down. So that if they miss that, they have to change it right away, or it gets shut off.
Is that what I noticed that the service station there on 193 in Kingsville, it's been shut off for like 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know what their problem is. I think the sign may be just too old.
Yeah.
To try and make it work, so because it's quite old.
Yeah. I noticed we were talking yesterday on 193, the BP station's at 229, and the station next to it was 209.
Right.
So I was waiting for one of them to change, and the BP station, I guess, actually changed.
Yeah.
So.
They all watch each other.
They do.
Yeah.
So when we went to the break, we were going to talk about Board of Revision, and you were just talking about gas stations and people thinking they're being charged too much or something. I bet the same thing goes for Board of Revision.
Well, the process that we do for every 6 years, the law says I have to revalue every parcel in the county, which means we have to put eyes on it, and we have to evaluate and reassess. So, you know, the value that was there before is totally wiped out. And we create new tables based on new statistics. Now, these statistics are developed from the last 2 years of sales in the county and in their neighborhood. And once we have set all those values, we invite people to come in and talk about their value. We try to get it in the newspapers and on the internet and everything, so that we get people aware that the values are complete. We did that in 2014, the fall. We had several weeks where, you know, people just came in to talk about their values, their new values. And,
so they get, they get a bill?
This is before they get a bill.
Okay.
So, you know, in 2014, the reval year is January 1st. It's always assessed as of the first of a year, and January 1st was our reval date. So everybody's value changed January 1st. It either went up, went down, and some might have stayed the same, but it was only because it just came out that way.
Right.
Because we're not looking at prior year values. We're looking at what it should be at this given point in time.
So you don't look at a property and look at the last evaluation and say, it's about the same.
No, they don't. They wipe everything in. It's a new slate, and now I think there's some disadvantage to that, because it does put people back at an unreasonable amount.
Right.
And so if they don't come in at the informal reviews, then they can file a complaint, you know, between January 1st and March 31st of this year, and we call those Board of Revision complaints. And then we'll review and schedule hearings as needed, and that's where people have an opportunity to prove we're wrong, the auditor's wrong, and because by law the assessed value that we give it is considered correct until you prove different.
So if you don't say anything, that's what you're going to be paying taxes on.
Yeah, that's what you will be paying taxes on. We had 670 complaints this year, and the board has been very active as far as hearings.
You said that you spend 2 days a week all day doing that?
Yes. There was a couple. There was 1 or 2 weeks in each month that we didn't. But we have been pushing to get all these hearings because we need to get this done by the end of this month. We have a few scheduled this month, but not near as much as what we had in August, July, June, May. We did most of the work there. And I'd say 50-50. I mean, you know, some of these houses, because you don't get inside when you do this reappraisal, some of these houses, there's things about the inside we don't know anything about.
Right.
So they come and they give us pictures, or they tell us about the inside, and we make adjustments.
How many of those properties do you make adjustments on?
I'd say it's about 50-50.
Really?
Yeah. Because this is the one thing I have against the way we do reappraisal. You know, by wiping out the prior year.
Yeah.
Those numbers from the prior year had we had some things built into it, because we found out that the inside of this house was stripped and there was nothing in it, and it was used for storage or whatever.
So
but on the outside it looks normal.
Some guys are like, okay, here's the pictures from the last revision because it still holds true.
Yeah, well, they usually bring us good information. Sometimes they don't bring anything, and then we don't. We look. The board is actually proactive. The board looks to see if there's anything that they think could be questioned. Sometimes we'll refer a case back to the auditor's office, and I will send my staff out to check again, you know, and try to get inside and find out from the property owners. And then, like I said, we do make. You know, if we see things, if my office sees things that we don't agree with, we'll make adjustments, we'll come up with a new number and offer that to them to settle the case. That way they don't have to come to a formal hearing.
Do people have an argument that, like, my house hasn't changed and yet the assessment's doubled? And Or
Yes.
Can it be?
You
Is
can-
that enough of an argument, or?
Well, the biggest thing I would have to say is that a lot of properties, the buildings went down, except by the lakes, Lake Erie, Roman Shores, Pymatuning, and unfortunately, we have people coming in from out of this county buying these properties, and that drives the property values up. Geneva on the lake,
Yeah.
Ashtabula, along the lake, not so much, but because it's well established. But the Kingsville, Conneaut, all along the lake, properties have gone up considerably, and it's because people from outside come and buy, and they spend a lot of money on these.
Okay, wasn't there something in Conneaut along the lake, something about somebody was hired to do assessments or something, and there was some kind of an error, and the city of Conneaut got money that they weren't supposed to get, and they had to give it back?
Well,
what was that about?
Well, there was a neighborhood, and see, we divide the county up into a number. I can't remember the exact number, but it's quite a few different neighborhoods, because we try to get neighborhoods that are similar in characteristics, and that way we can value the whole neighborhood. And there was a neighborhood, it was more along the river and north, just northeast side of Conneaut. It's a neighborhood that we label 8800, and the properties were adjusted incorrectly.
We have a phone call, see if maybe this is... Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, Mr. Corlett, this is Dennis. And it might have been this year when that lady had that house in Geneva on the lake. She was complaining, her property value had doubled, She didn't live in the house. She lived down in Warren, if I remember right.
Oh, that was in the paper, yes.
Yeah, the one that was in the paper. And you were quoted as saying that the reason her property values went up is because more people were coming into the I don't know, is that a village or, on the strip there, and spending more money. Now, what I can never figure out, what does that have to do with the value of your property? I mean, if you haven't did nothing to it, it stays the same, and all that. Why would, people coming in, spending money, why would that have anything to do with property values? I never could figure that one out.
Okay, we'll have an answer.
Okay, when we value properties, it's what we call true market value, and this is by law. What we have to do is we value properties in the neighborhood on the basis of sales. The sales drive the values, because that's what we are trying to determine, is what would that property sell for. If you put it up for sale, what kind of money would you get out of it? And that's what we're estimating when we do these appraisals. And we hire outside appraisers, and this company is a rather large company out of Dayton. And they developed the statistics in the Geneva on the Lake area that showed, these properties had all significantly gone up in value. In particular, we had a lot of border revision cases with Geneva on the Lake. Some we were able to make adjustments because we felt that the board felt that we could make adjustments, because it was because we didn't know what the actual cottage or the house was inside and what condition it was. And so, some of them have been reduced, and some of them have stayed the same, because basically that's what the market data tells us that house could sell for. Now, that's truly what we're supposed to do.
So the end result is you don't have to do anything to your house. You don't have to put on an addition or paint it or anything for it to go up in value. If your neighbors' houses go up in value, then...
If you're in an area
Yeah.
that is generating interest and people are coming in and paying more for houses,
Right.
your house has gone up in value. It may not show up until the 6th year when we do this revaluation. And see, that's one misconception with this reval. It didn't go up just in 6 years, or I mean in 1 year. It went up in over a 6-year period.
Of course, there's people are going to say though, well, that's fine if I was selling my house, but I'm not, so it's not doing me any good, and I'm having to pay more. I imagine you've heard that.
Yes, and we also know that people are still underwater as far as some of these houses.
Yeah.
Meaning that they have more borrowed against the house than they have value in it, and until they go to sell it, they don't realize it.
But you can't lower the rates because they're underwater.
No, I'm charged with, and like I said, I'm a chief assessor. I'm appointed by the state tax commissioner to assess property in the county. The state tax commissioner is the assessor of all property in the state of Ohio. He assigns auditors as his agents to go out and do this, so I really answer to him also.
Right. Let's see, we have another call coming in. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm one of those Lake Road residents. We paid $3,250 for our lot 61 years ago. And I see it's now valued at $94,000. And then, of course, the house, we haven't done really anything to it. But my property is valued at 5 times the actual money we have in it. I'm to the point, if my taxes go up anymore, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because 6 months of my income now goes for property taxes and insurance, which I have to have. Liability, my liability insurance went up from $200 some to $800 some over the years. Because somebody has to pay for all those disasters out in Oklahoma and Kansas and those other places. It must be that because all these years we haven't had that much demand on our insurance company that would make it do that. So, like I said, our house doesn't have that much improvement on the inside in all these years. We've kept it up, but we haven't, So what am I going to do?
Okay, we'll let Mr. Corlett answer on the air. I don't think it has anything to do with disasters in Oklahoma, though.
No, and like I said earlier, it has to do with the sales, and that, if we didn't have sales along the lake that were increasing the values, your value would stay the same, or it could go down. I mean, if people were paying less for the property, your property would go down.
Right.
And but unfortunately, everybody wants to live in a lake area, and so people along that lake road really are seeing an increase, which, I mean, for people, fixed income people, that's difficult. And
so what do you say?
I feel for
right,
her,
because you heard her talking about she spends 6 months of her pay on taxes and insurance and stuff. You must hear that, but you can't make a decision based on that. Or...
Right, I can't. There's no allowance for that in the law.
We got waylaid a little bit. It was a good waylaid, but we were starting to talk about the thing in Conneaut where there was an error by the company that was supposed to be doing assessments.
Yes, there's a neighborhood just north of 20 on the east side of Conneaut, next to the going over to the river, and the company adjusted the property. They did the reappraisal, and we had the numbers, and it was reviewed by my office. Everything was fine. Then, unbeknownst to us, they changed something, and they changed all the values again, and it went the opposite direction, and people ended up with double, triple their value in regard to this.
They changed a negative into a positive?
Yes. Instead of decreasing the values, it tripled the values. And
and people noticed that real quick.
they noticed that when they got the bills, and of course we immediately looked into it and found and got the company to admit that that was a mistake. It was an input error, and I was very upset about it.
Are you going to use that company again?
No, not at all. I learned the hard way here. We hired them because we expect them to do a professional job. this kind of a mistake I felt shouldn't happen. And especially changing something after we had reviewed it and okayed it, said we are fine with it, and then they change it. I mean,
Yeah.
and nobody, even though we put the values out that people could go online, they could find because we list the values for properties and the new values, and nobody complained or came in, and so we didn't know until the tax bills came out.
How many people know that it's there? That they can go online and see what the evaluation of the houses are?
Well, we tried to advertise that.
Okay.
It's all online. We
Right.
have a separate.
So that's a good time to everybody should look, so that
Yes,
rather than
but,
waiting
you
until
know,
their tax bills get there and
in the future, we're we always try to save money, but in the future, I believe that the next reval we would just send a card
Uh-huh.
to everyone, and some will get the cards. It depends on the mail system. We will advertise. We'll do a lot more to try and get people to look at these values ahead of time, because we want to resolve any problems before we do the
get it done as early
tax
as
bills.
possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we immediately adjusted all those properties down to what they should be, and we sent new tax bills. Some people didn't even realize that, though, until they came to, because they immediately filed complaint forms. Some of them we were able to get a hold of, some of them we weren't, and so they eventually got their complaint in anyways, and but their value was lower than what they were asking. So we're just leave it where we're at, and they were fine.
So that you were a hero there.
Well, I'm just doing what was the right thing to do, and that's what we're all as public servants. That's what we're supposed to do. Is we find an error, we got to correct it, and we admit that there were our outside appraiser made a mistake. We were unaware of.
My son used to live in the Rochester, New York area, which is pretty heavily taxed. They have an education tax and a property tax. So there's just a property tax here. What does that, when you pay your property tax, where's your money going?
It depends on the school district that you live in, but somewhere between 50 and 65% of it may go to the school district for the most part. It's usually the largest percentage of the bill. And if you look on your bill, on the left side of the bill, there's a breakdown of how much is going to what district. And you'll see the school district, you'll see the township or the municipality, you'll see the library, you'll see whoever gets the money out of that and how it breaks down. County gets a small percentage for the most part, but we do have, the county does have, the only levies the county had are from DD, the Development Disability levies,
Right.
and the mental health as a levy, and the senior
levy.
levy. But the county itself, as for administration, we only get, I think it was 4.61 or something as far as inside millage, and that's all we get off your property.
For all that work,
For
and
that,
then you have to give it to somebody else.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, it's me again. There was one thing I did want to ask you, Roger. On that breakdown that shows everything, what happened to the pie? The space is still there, but the pie is gone.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I'll give you a little background on the tax bill. I prepare the value abstract and what they call the tax rate abstract, and then we create bills from combining the two, but the bills are then really managed by the treasurer. And the state says what has to be on the bill, and the treasurer decides what else is going to be on the bill, and it's basically a matter of efficiency or whatever, but I couldn't really tell you why the pie disappeared. And in fact, I didn't even remember the pie until you brought it up.
Mm-hmm. But see, what I'm getting, a lot of people look at that pie. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and and they can look at the pie and they realize, I don't know why they can't read it, but they look at the pie and it's easier for them to understand where the money is going.
Sure.
The pie was great.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, I will bring it up to the treasurer to see, to see if there's an answer to that.
Yeah, because the space is still there. If I remember right, the space, the little space where that pie was, it's still there, but they just haven't put it in there.
Well, we changed software companies too, so I don't know if that was lost in the translation. We're using a new software company. We changed the whole tax and real estate assessment software about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. All right, thank you. I just,
They want you to watch your calories, Dennis.
Huh?
They want you to watch your calories.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. We got a few minutes. I want to talk because I wrote something on the air here once about the problems with reverse mortgages, and when you have people that, their taxes have gone up and they're spending half of their money on insurance and on stuff that they might be those reverse mortgages that might appeal to them, but they aren't always the right answer. Or what do you think about those?
Well, the little that I've read about them, and because I'm not in the business of doing personal finance anymore,
Right.
But I do from my own standpoint. I've read in regard to these reverse mortgages, the story, they make them sound better than what they really are. And I'm not saying that there aren't situations that it's absolutely the best thing that can be done. But the only thing I would advise people to do is to talk to a financial planner that understands
Right.
all the ins and outs of these reverse mortgages.
Alex Trebek isn't good enough.
They're not even the same, from what I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really get caught in something that you didn't understand. So you really need to talk to somebody who is very versed in these.
Okay.
That's the best advice I could give.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to? Your office handles so many different things.
Well, I guess I would like to say is that, don't be afraid to call the office and ask questions in regard to your property.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the biggest thing we do there. Or you can call about other things too, financials of the county or whatever. But we try to put a lot of things online at the auditor's website, and I believe it's auditor.org, Asheville County Auditor.org. But there's a lot of financial information. There's a lot of you can look up properties and all that. A lot of people use that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And of course, one of my goals in this next term is to make it even more user-friendly and provide a lot more information too.
Well, you say you're kind of a tech guy, so
Yes.
that should.
Well, the big thing right now is the state treasurer and this open checkbook. I don't know, you've probably seen the articles in the paper, and we're interested, but we're sort of holding back until we see how some other larger counties,
Right.
How it works for them, because there's questions that we don't think we have answers to yet. But, we certainly want everything out there. I publish a monthly transaction report for every department in the county. You can look at the fund and see what was spent, what was received. The general fund is the biggest, of course.
I bet, yeah.
But you've got the court funds there, you've got the prosecutor funds. You can look monthly to see what...
Now, you say look, does that mean people can look?
Yes.
Online?
It's online.
Oh, okay.
We publish it monthly, right
Excellent.
after the first of the month. And I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of that, but we do have it there. So
get off Facebook for a little bit and go to the auditor's website.
yeah, explore.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.
It's been interesting.